Amazon plans to cut 10,000 jobs, roughly 1% of its global workforce this week. Now, here's the thing, like 1% of its workforce doesn't necessarily mean that much, but this is literally 10,000 people that are working basically more than likely a full-time job. So 10,000 people are going to lose their full-time job. And since the majority of people are practically living on credit cards and living paycheck to paycheck, this is actually a really bad situation. So Amazon executives are set to lay off thousands of employees with just weeks to go before the busy holiday season as the tech sector braces for a recession. According to the New York Times, the online retailer plans to lay off 10,000 people in corporate and technology jobs as early as this week in what would be the largest job cuts in the company's history. The announcement comes on the heels of mass layoffs at tech giants such as Meta, Twitter, and Microsoft, which has put thousands of employees out of work. Additionally, Apple, the world's most valuable company, has reportedly slowed its hiring process, according to CEO Tim Cook. Now, the greatest thing about Apple is that they always have a disgusting amount of cash in their coffers, unlike all these other companies. For Amazon, the cuts will focus primarily on the company's devices, including voice assistant and Alexa, sources familiar with the discussion said, as well as its retail division and human resources. The move comes as the company reportedly lost $1 trillion over the year after its stock plummeted last week, while Jeff Bezos promised to give away most of his $124 billion fortune. It remains unclear exactly how many jobs will be lost and whether the layoffs will only affect those in the United States or worldwide. But if the company goes through with its proposal to cut 10,000 jobs, it would lose about 3% of Amazon's corporate employees, though the cuts would only represent less than 1% of its global workforce of more than 1.5 million, which primarily comprises hourly workers. The proposed layoffs mark a dramatic turn of events for Amazon, which had seen its most profitable era during the COVID pandemic, when people throughout the world were forced to stay at home. It doubled its workforce over the course of just 2 years and funneled its massive earnings into new projects. And in an effort to hire even more employees earlier this year, Amazon more than doubled its cap on cash compensation for tech workers, citing a particularly competitive labor market. But in its quarterly earnings report at the end of September, executives warned investors that its growth may weaken, possibly to the lowest point since 2001, amid record high inflation. Then, just last week, the Times reports Amazon executives met with institutional investors as its stock sank to its lowest level since the early days of the pandemic, costing the company $1 trillion. And as of Monday morning, the company was trading at 98.81, down 42% from the same time last year. Sources say CEO Andy Jassy was already looking at ways to pare down costs to the ever-expanding tech giant before considering the layoffs. After he became CEO of the company last year, previously heading its cloud computing business, he immediately pulled back on a proposed warehouse expansion. In the ensuing months, he also closed down or at least pared back initiatives like Amazon Care, a service providing primary and urgent health care that never garnered enough customers, Scout, the cooler-sized delivery robot, and Fabric.com, a subsidiary that sold sewing supplies. And from April through September, the Times reports, Amazon reduced its workforce by almost 80,000 people, primarily by shrinking its number of hourly workers, and it froze hiring on several smaller teams in September. And by October, Amazon stopped filling more than 10,000 open roles in its retail business before announcing just a few weeks ago that it froze corporate hiring across the company. But it was Amazon's devices and retail departments that insiders have long thought were the most at risk of being cut. Amazon's Alexa and its related products were the company's priority as it sought to compete with Apple Siri, doubling staff on Alexa and Echo products from 2017 to 2018. It has since sold hundreds of Alexa enabled devices, even as company executives have said the products are low margin. In 2018, Echo and Alexa cost the company about $5 billion. And as a result, when Amazon introduced its new devices this fall at an annual event, it did not feature as much fanfare as in years past. Meanwhile, Amazon's retail business, which covers its physical and online presence, has been under financial strain since the massive expansion during the pandemic, the Times reports. Company executives have said they have pulled back on expansion and told investors last month they see uncertainty with consumers. We're realistic that there's various factors weighing on people's wallets, Brian Olofsky said, the financial chief told investors. He said the company was unsure where spending was heading amid historic inflation rates, but said we're ready for a variety of outcomes. Yeah, see, here's the thing. What people need to understand is like when these massive corporations are starting to fire people, that's a very bad sign for the economy. That's a very bad sign for basically the financial situation that people are going to have to deal with. Like, I would not be surprised if, like, maybe a few months down the road, that the grocery store prices might be an issue. Like, it's already like tough on people, but I think people are going to start to feel a lot of pain at the grocery store pretty soon because there's going to be so many people losing their jobs from every sector out there, right? So the main thing to really like learn from this kind of article is that it's extremely important to have some sort of an emergency fund because there is no such thing as a secure job, right? If you work underneath someone, you can be fired, period, end of story, right? For almost any reason in some states. So that's just something to keep in mind, right? The only person that you could really rely on yourself to try to provide some sort of income is yourself, right? You need to rely on your own skills. You need to rely on your own willpower because the reality, these big corporations or whatever job is hiring you doesn't really care about your life, right? You care the most about your life. That's the reality of the whole situation. So, if you're working a job right now, make sure that you start stacking up cash because things are probably going to get really insane. So, let's see some of these comments. The economy must be doing great. The biggest retailer on the planet is laying off people just before Christmas. Oof, yeah. Interesting. But yeah. Feel free to give your thoughts on this, but make sure to create some sort of an emergency fund. And if you want to learn how I got out of debt and grew my net worth, go down below or go to 40inbox.com.